This episode is proudly sponsored by HASA, the trusted choice for liquid chlorine. It's better because it offers the highest purity, works instantly, and contains no added CYA. By the bottom feeder, professional-grade battery-powered swimming pool vacuum system, it sucks to clean pools, so cleaning pools sucks less. Get $100 off the bottom feeder with code DVB100. Skimmer, trusted by over 30,000 pool service professionals across North America. Skimmer software helps you save time, grow revenue, and boost your 5-star reviews. Whether you're just starting out or expanding your team, Skimmer's easy-to-use tools and expert support have you covered. Upgrade your business in 2025 with Skimmer. Try Skimmer for 30 days for free at getskimmer.com/poolguy.
The Pool Guy Podcast Show. The Pool Guy Podcast Show. The Pool Guy Podcast Show.
Hi, and welcome to the Pool Guy Podcast Show. In this episode, I'm going to go over the steps you can take if you do a job or do service and you don't get paid for that particular service. I'll go over some steps to prevent this, of course, and some recourse and some action you could take if you did something and you didn't get paid for that particular job. Join my coaching program and take your pool service to the next level. Connect with other pool pros in your area, gain valuable knowledge, and transform your business with personalized one-on-one advice from me. With over 36 years of experience, I'm here to help you succeed like never before. Learn more at poolguycoaching.com. I wouldn't say that this is a rampant problem in the pool service industry, at least. I think it's a pretty cut and dry thing. When you provide a service, you'll get paid for it. However, there are instances where you don't get paid for something, or the customer doesn't pay the monthly service in a timely manner, or not even at all in some cases. One way to, of course, help mitigate some of the unpaid service, if you're doing pool service, weekly service, and you bill your customer monthly, is to stop service in a timely manner. Now, at what point do you stop service? Well, there's really no cut and dry answer to this. However, it's a customer by customer basis, I think. And if there's a customer that's 30 days past due, I would definitely stop service at that point. You have to initially do a few things first. And if you've exhausted all of these, then I would definitely stop after a 30-day period, because chances are, if you keep going 60 days, 90 days, they won't be able to catch up on the bill and pay you for all of that time. So if they can't even pay you for 30 days of service, you're unlikely to collect 90 days of service if you continue doing the pool past a certain cutoff point. Now, this is all customer by customer. It may differ a little bit, but I would say that would be the maximum time for most people would be 30 days late. So if you bill them for a service, say in March, you're there in April, they haven't paid you for March, you finish April, I would stop service right there. To me, that's kind of the 30 days I'm talking about. You have the 30 days that you're due the service. So you're not stopping like April 5th or something kind of weird like that. You're stopping at the end of April because another 30 days has gone by, which technically would be 2 months of service at that point. But the way that you want to kind of stop the bleeding is to stop at that point, because then you'll go another 30 days, and that's 3 payments that are due. And if you charge $200 a month, that's $600 a customer owes you to come current, and that's probably not very possible for a lot of people in a situation where they fall behind in payments to begin with. So after 1 month of free service, basically, which is technically 2 months because they owed you for that month they didn't pay you for, I would stop service with that customer. It's really hard to stop sooner, because if you stop, let's say, on April 10th or April 12th, that's only like 10 days late or 12 days late, basically. It's not a whole month late. And if the customer starts complaining about it and say, hey, I was going to pay you and you stopped, so, there you go, I think that's a problem too. So you have to have a limit, and you can't go much further for the reason I stated. And you want to, of course, send a polite payment reminder if the payment is not received at the beginning of the month. And then you want to, of course, detail in really good detail of what actually is due. Hi, Mr. Jones, I haven't received the March pool service payment, if you can make that payment as soon as you're able to, that way you can get current and I can continue service. You may even want to say in that after, by the end of April 30th, you'll no longer be able to service the pool due to non-payment. So giving him a deadline and also a consequence would be the first step. I don't think it would be logical to just stop service on April 30th without communicating the fact at some point during that non-payment time that you will stop service at a certain date. That kind of gives them an ultimatum that may wake them up, because you're really technically, if you want to look at the food chain of services, of course, the mortgage is number one, car payment is number two, although some people reverse that, which is weird. Number three would be all the credit card payments. Sometimes they don't pay those either. And then you would start paying things like servicers, the house cleaner, the gardener, the pool service, whichever order they decide is more of a priority is when they'll pay those particular vendors. And it goes down to some other bills and things like that. So you're not really at the top of that order. And if you don't remind them and let them know what's going to happen, they may just ignore the late payments. You want to try maybe even making contact with them by finding them at home and see if you get the payment. Not harassing them, but just kind of, don't block their driveway with your truck. There's some pool companies that have been known to do this where they'll just kind of block the driveway and the customer can't go to work. Probably that's a little bit too much. You're probably going to get paid at that point so you can move your vehicle. But I wouldn't do that because I don't think that's entirely legal to do in a lot of cases, in a lot of instances. But you may want to make contact with them, find out, you kind of know when they're home and maybe knock on a door and say, hey, if you have last month's payment, I'm here. I have my Square terminal. You can pay it right now with your credit card. That's probably legitimately okay because you need to pay the bill, or they need to pay the bill, I should say. You're there, and usually they're not going to ignore you at that point, especially if you're going to take a Square credit card payment for the balance. You also may want to keep the language from being too strong. You may want to be sympathetic. I understand that, sometimes you forget to pay the bill and it's understandable, but I did send you an invoice and a reminder. Or, is there a problem with, you paying the bill this month? Is there something that we can discuss or work out? Maybe they just need a payment arrangement where they pay you partial payment. I mean, it shouldn't be that way. Or you can offer them, again, the credit card payment. Just say, if you want to pay with your credit card this month because I haven't received your check, you can pay this way. And so this is one way to get your money. And then you would keep an eye on this customer to make sure they're consistently paying you and not always late or missing a month, getting close to the deadline where you're going to cut off service. It reminds me of Wimpy from Popeye, I'll gladly pay you Tuesday for a hamburger today or cheeseburger today. I can't remember how he says that exactly, but you get the idea that there are some people that are perpetually behind in problems. And those are the customers that eventually you want to get off your pool route when you get someone else on there that can take the place of that customer. Because it's really a lot of effort and it's a pain to be chasing down people for just the monthly service fee. Now, what about if you did a job or project? Let's just say you did a green pool cleanup and it was $800. It was pretty bad. You cleaned the filter 3 times, you got the pool back, you use a lot of chemicals, and you send the customer the invoice and they just give you radio silence. You remind them, you of course send messages and you leave emails and you maybe even leave a note on their door and nothing at that point. Well, there's one mistake that you made at the very beginning. If the payment due to you is the whole $800, that's one problem that you created for yourself, especially if it's an unknown customer. It's not someone that you do business with normally. You definitely would want to get a deposit or a partial payment for a job that large. Now, of course, this takes some trust because the customer doesn't know you. You don't know the customer. However, I think if you're going to start the green pool cleanup that day, I would have them pay you a partial payment with their credit card. I think the Square terminal is a great way to collect money on the spot. They also have a little Dougal for your cell phone, and you can get the payment there. But I would at least get $300 or $400. And since you're starting that day, you have all your equipment, you're there, you're cleaning the filter. Essentially, you're actually on the job site, ready to start the work. They should not refuse to pay you because They can see that you're going to start, you have everything, and you may even just start the process before you swipe their card. But you don't want to do something this large for someone who's unknown to you, because there is a good chance that you will not get paid for this job if you don't know the person, and there's nothing really binding them to you at this point, except the fact that you did the green pool cleanup, the pool looks blue now, and they didn't pay you anything. That's kind of binding you to them because you want your money, but there's nothing really contractual. A lot of times they don't have them sign a contract. It'd be a good idea to have an invoice where they sign, and that way you have a signature and their name on there at least. But there's really not a whole lot of recourse, even if you have a signed invoice from the customer. And you may say, well, I mean, they owe me $800, I'm going to sue them. Well, okay, you can sue them, but there's legal fees involved with that. Even if you go to small claims court, there's some court fees. There may even be nothing you can do after you get the judgment. Let's say that the small claims court says, yes, they owe you $800. Well, then you're going to have to try to collect on that. And there's a whole other process in that arena, collecting that money. You may say, well, I'm going to report them to a credit bureau. You probably don't have enough information from the customer besides their name to do this in the first place. And if you do somehow send them the collection and they do get something on their credit, chances are they're going to leave a pretty scathing review against your company. That's kind of what people do nowadays in business when you offend them or fail to provide something that they desire. They'll go online and try to ruin your reputation online. It's a sad thing, but someone who's not paying you $800 would probably be the type of person to go online and drag your business through the mud. Third, you may be saying, well, I'm going to put a lien on their property. Well, that's fine. You can file the paperwork for that. However, to make the lien legal and binding, you have to go to court and you have to be a licensed general contractor to put the lien on the property. So there's a lot of things that you can do, but they're not effective and they may be counterproductive to you collecting the money. So the moral of the story, or the way you can avoid this, is to collect a partial payment. So at least if they don't pay you the $400, the balance that's due, you've covered some of your costs, your chemical costs, some of your labor costs. It's not a complete loss. Now, there's been pool pros that have put in pumps, VS pumps, and the bill is $1,800 or $2,000, and the customer doesn't pay them a dime at that point because they didn't collect any money up front, which was a mistake. And then they want to go back and cut the equipment out. Well, there's a few problems with that idea as well, because once you install that product into the customer's equipment pad, technically that's their personal property, whether or not they paid you or not. And if you go out there and take it off of their property, you've actually broken the law. And I would consider that in California, I think nationally, anything over $1,000 is a felony. So you may even be charged with a crime if you even go there to try to cut it out. I don't think the customers really would know this. And there's been pool companies that have done this, of course. But there is some legal ramifications from taking back the property. I had one customer, this was many years ago, and this still bothers me because it was such a minor thing and it was a real irritating situation. But the house was sold. I had my Hayward Navigator cleaner in there, and it was my cleaner that I was letting the other customer use. Now, it wasn't worth anything really. It was an old Hayward Navigator. Basically, it was a used cleaner I was letting the customer use in the pool. And when the house sold, I went there to take the cleaner out because they weren't going to continue service. And the guy was like, hey, what are you doing? That's my cleaner. And I was trying to explain to him, and this is probably my mistake, even leaving it there during the escrow. I was like, oh, this is the spare cleaner I put in for the previous owner. And basically it's like, well, you can't take that because it's in the pool and it's mine. And if you do, you're going to have some, legal issues. In other words, he was going to probably call the police or something. So I left it in there. And that's a minor little thing. And that kind of bugged me. So I couldn't imagine if it was a VS pump that I put in and the customer stiffed me for the money. That's even a bigger thing. But little things like that can be avoided. I could have easily avoided that by taking the cleaner out prior to the close of escrow, which you probably should do if there's anything that's yours on a pool where the new owner takes over. He didn't know anything about the arrangement with the other customer, obviously. And it's one of those things where it's a situation that you can create by not taking proactive steps prior to a situation, which means that if you're putting in a large dollar amount equipment and they're not your customer, now if it's your regular customer, I don't really go through a lot of process, because if they've been your full service customer for 2 years, there's a very good chance your regular customer is going to pay you for that. In fact, sometimes I'll just put it on their next month's bill. I won't bother collecting on the spot. If I put in 8 new filter grids, I'll just bill them the following month for it because I know they're good for it. This is mainly dealing with strangers, people that call you out of the blue, people you don't know that want to do that want you to do service work for them. I really would make sure that you get some money up front, because there's not a lot you can do, like I mentioned, after the fact to collect that balance. One last resort is maybe negotiating for a partial payment, because like I mentioned, to get everything is probably not going to happen in some cases. And this has been successfully done. I've actually coached one of my members through this. He did a green pool cleanup. It was for an owner of a rental. He didn't even meet the person, which is a mistake right there. It was all done through text messaging. He did the green pool cleanup for the tenant, and he didn't get paid. I think it was like $1,200. It was like a huge green pool cleanup full of junk, and it was a total disaster. One of the reasons why the owner wasn't paying is because he said there was a stain in, it was a vinyl liner pool. There was a stain there, and the cleanup caused it. It wasn't there prior to it. Now, how can the person prove that? Or how can the pool service provider prove that it wasn't there prior? Who knows? It was a green pool. Couldn't see the bottom. So the whole thing was hung up on the fact that he was saying that the pool liner was stained during the cleanup process because that stain wasn't there prior to the pool being cleaned up. And this could happen to you also. You can be accused of something after the fact. Especially this happens a lot with acid washes and with green pool cleanups, more than you would want it to. And so you want to have some kind of basic contract you can draw up saying that you're not, responsible for pre-existing issues with the pool, or something basic like that if you feel a little nervous about the person that you're doing the work for. But you can negotiate a partial payment. That's what I told him to do. He wasn't going to get anything of the $1,200 because the customer was disputing it based on this stain that he said was caused by the cleanup. And I said, well, just ask him for half the money. See if he'll settle for half the money. And so it was back and forth, and it got to the point where, yes, he agreed to pay half the money, and he got $600 out of a $1,200 job. That was fine, because then he got his money and the headache was done. It wasn't the full amount, but he got something. So if someone owes you for something, it's not a bad idea to negotiate. That's what the collector agencies do a lot of times. They'll negotiate how much to pay to get it off, to get the collection off the books. And you can do the same thing, and you may just get enough to cover some of the cost of the product that you put in there, but it's better than nothing. And so I would say the last resort, and the last resort wouldn't be taking him to court because that's probably not effective. The last resort would be just to negotiate some kind of partial settlement or partial payment, and that's probably the best you can do in some cases, and it's worth a shot to get at least a little bit of money. So if you do a green pool and it's $800 and they're ignoring your invoices, or basically ignoring everything, maybe just settle with them for $400, and maybe you'll get lucky and they'll pay you the $400 and you can call it a day and learn from your lesson. But bottom line, try to get some of the payment, if not all the payment, which is kind of hard to do, but at least half the payment up front and then the balance at the end right away. And I would recommend using a Square credit card swiper or the Square terminal to collect the payment right away. That way it goes through and you have the payment, versus them giving you a check. Does anyone write checks? Probably not anymore, but Zelling you the money or Venmo, that's also effective. But credit cards are good too, because then the customer can kind of float that payment if they need to another month. And sometimes that makes all the difference right there, collecting it with a credit card versus asking for the Venmo or the Zelle sent to your account. Looking for other podcasts that I recorded, you can find those on my website, swimmingprolearning.com. On the banner, click on the podcast icon. There'll be a drop-down menu of other podcasts I've recorded there for you. And if you're interested in my coaching program, you can learn more at poolguycoaching.com. Thanks for listening to this podcast. Have a great rest of your week, and God bless. This episode is brought to you by HASA, providing products that deliver clean, healthy water for every aspect of everyday life. The bottom feeder battery-powered vacuum system, portable, powerful, and only weighs 12 pounds. And Skimmer. Get Skimmer, America's #1 pool service software. Podcast listeners can try Skimmer for free at getskimmer.com/poolguy.